Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Bar podcast. I'm your host, Denisa Tova, and today I am thrilled to have a very special guest, the Honorable Sherry Klein Heitler. She's a retired Supreme Court judge with a remarkable journey from the Bronx to the bench. Now, since July 2021, Judge Heitler has been mediating and arbitrating a wide range of cases at the Judicial Arbitration and Mediation Services and really showcasing her vast experience and expertise in various legal areas. But today we're going beyond the law, and we will talk to Judge Heitler about her life beyond the law, including her connections to Colorado, which is dear to my heart, and also her love for fashion. And also, interestingly, her daughter Jill Blumberg, who is a also successful attorney, was our previous guest on our podcast. So let's dive into this remarkable journey. Welcome, Judge Heitler.
Well, thank you for that terrific introduction. I've really been looking forward to today so that we can have a nice conversation. So, thank you again.
Likewise, and my pleasure. So, Judge, could you share the story of what initially drew you to the legal field? Because one doesn't decide to be a judge right away. So how did you get there, and how did your early life in the Bronx set the stage for your future career?
Well, growing up, the Bronx was exciting. For a good part of my life, I lived right near Yankee Stadium. And when there was a home run, the earth would actually shake. And we knew that the Yankees obviously were winning. But I was very lucky. I had a great education. I was at Bronx Science for high school and then Hunter, which actually their main campus was in the Bronx, and then NYU to graduate school. And then I was always very, very active in charity work. And at one point, I was asked in one of these charities to sit on their labor negotiating committee as a lay member. And I
Mm.
really sat at the feet of masters and said, I really think maybe this is something I should do. My father was a lawyer and also went on the bench to become a Supreme Court judge. But I do think it was this program of sitting with these geniuses, negotiating contracts that really fascinated me.
So going back to when you were, I don't know, in high school, when it was at the time then when you started thinking about, following in your father's footsteps. I mean, what is your earliest memory that really drew you to this field?
Well, I remember thinking about it, but at that moment in time, I was not that serious about it. Thought about it in college, but then went on to graduate school. And at that time, unfortunately, one of the first things you were asked when you went for a job interview was, can you type? And I truly was and am the worst typist that was ever put on this earth. And I think that I felt if I went into the law at that point, I might be disappointed because it was extraordinarily tough, and the women who were in it were really our trailblazers.
Hmm.
And one of my mentors, Judge Ellerin, was in it, and we really have to thank those who went ahead of us. But so came later in life, got married to a Colorado guy, and had our first child, and then went to law school. And I don't regret any of it. I My first job was in college admissions. I learned a lot in that world, and of course, going into law school, I was already a mother and had work experience, and I think that was very helpful in my fun time at Fordham Law School. I was known as the mother.
What a remarkable career, and the determination. I wonder what that would be like if somebody asked me. Do you know how to type? It's it's and I'm wondering if that fueled further your determination. It's just different
Probably,
different times. Yeah.
probably. Yeah.
What have you found to be most challenging about your role, your position as a judge, would you say? Sort of looking back at your career.
I think probably the most challenging is to make every person that came before the bench feel that at that moment in time, their case was the most important case in the world to me.
Hmm.
Nobody comes to court happy. They're not happy at all. And I would try very, very hard uh, to make them feel that they were in a place where there was a judge who was going to be neutral, who would listen to them. Listening is a very big part of judging. So I think that was the biggest challenge.
Hmm. That is not easy, and then to cut through the various emotions. I had another retired judge on a podcast, and she said, "You know, it's the timing. It's understanding the timing that." I mean, her focus was the matrimonial field, and once you understood that the two people were not necessarily sharing the same timeline, as well as their attorneys, it really hit home for her. Um, Transitioning into mediation because you are now in private practice wearing a slightly different hat. How would you say it is? How is it different than being a judge? And what are you still learning about yourself?
I don't see it as that different. I see people who have chosen to mediate or to arbitrate and to take advantage of what can be offered in mediation and arbitration, in the sense that we can take a couple of days to resolve something where it might take a couple of years in the court system. They are choosing to come here to see if there is a way to finish a case, go home, and know that it is over. But it's the same tension, it's the
Hmm.
same anger. And whether somebody was before me with someone who, let's say, became a quadriplegic because of no water in the swimming pool, or coming here with that same case. Um, so I see it the same. What have I learned about myself? That's a tough one. I guess, if anything, I've learned that as patient as I like to think I am, I always have to work on that aspect of life.
I appreciate you being candid about this, Judge, because I don't care what people say and how much work they have done on themselves. When you are dealing with so many emotions, and it is the fear generally that is the secondary emotion that sort of is beneath the anger, or shame, sense of shame. That is not easy. That is not easy, and you would have to be, in my view, a robot, not to feel anything. So I have a lot of respect for the work that you do. Now, I can see that the apple has not fallen far from the tree. I had a pleasure, as we talked about, having your terrific daughter, Jill Blumberg, who's very accomplished attorney and a trailblazer. Um, Now, having Jill follow in your legal footsteps, so to speak, and even attend same Fordham Law School, just like you, it must have been a proud moment when she first expressed interest in pursuing career in law. Did you have any reservations about her entering the field, sort of knowing, firsthand the challenges and the demands that it entails?
No, because I think law was absolutely perfect for Jill. She has a very outgoing, pleasant personality,
Yes.
but she works very, very hard. And I knew that when she walked into court, she would almost be over prepared. And of course, that's so extremely important. Um, she has a wonderful younger sister who's in a completely different field. And I'm very proud to say that our other daughter, Jenny, um, is very much the same in that when she takes on a job, there's over preparation, and there's nothing in the world like over preparation for any job that you're in. So,
Mm.
no, I knew she'd be a success.
So you mentioned a significant connection to Colorado, which we share, by the way, as I spent significant part of my life there. What is it about Colorado that captured and captures your heart?
My husband and my husband's family. Um, I was doing some fundraising uh, at a charity, and my husband was in the audience. And afterwards, there was dinner and dancing, and he asked me to dance. And that has led us to almost 56 years.
Wow.
And so I always joke and say that I married a cowboy, and a cowboy who was extremely athletic, um, as was his family. And, you mentioned my growing up in the Bronx. Um, I didn't even know how to ride a two-wheeler. I only knew about three-wheelers, and I go to Colorado and I marry these people who are champions at this and go down the Black Mountains or whatever they call them, the Black um, paths. And that was a challenge. That was a challenge. Yeah.
Now there's a
So
story though that you shared. You didn't give up. I remember
no,
that. You did not give up. You what what was the bike story?
well, I felt I never was going to be a great skier. I don't like waiting online. I don't like the cold. And I didn't like coming down
I
the
get it.
mountains at 100 miles an hour. But I said, at least I could learn how to ride a bike. So at that time, um, New York Magazine always had all kinds of personal ads. And I read an ad that said, I can teach anybody how to ride a bike. My name is Mike. Give me a call. So I called Mike and a little trepidation, and I explained, I don't know how to ride a bike. He says, don't worry. Meet me in the park where they rent the bikes, and I'll teach you how to ride a bike. So I got there 1 hour early because I was a little worried. Who was this guy? And they said, oh, don't worry, lady. He teaches everybody to ride. And in fact, he did after 2 lessons to teach me how to ride. And then I very proudly said to my wonderful husband, so let's go riding in Central Park today. And he kind of gave me a look. And I said, I think I'm going to try to ride a two-wheeler. And I did. And he asked me how I learned how to ride a bike. And but I wasn't as successful with golf. I think probably because it took so long and there was no chance. His mother was state champion in golf, so
Wow.
you know better not to compete with your mother-in-law when you definitely know you're going to lose.
That's the real secret to successful marriage then.
Right.
Wow, that's such a fun story. Now you've shown a keen interest in fashion. How do you think about fashion? How do you believe actually the personal style influences professional perception, if at all? And how has fashion allowed you to express your individuality?
Well, I'm going to separate that into two answers. I always mentored a lot of young people, taught, and I always said to all my students, look, when you go into court, you got to look like a lawyer. And you might want to wear a skirt that's the length of a tennis skirt at another time, you go into court, your client is looking at you, everybody else in the courtroom is looking like you, look like a lawyer. But um, fashion should be something that is individual to each person. If you look good in stripes, great. If you look good in patterns, great. Um, but everybody, I think, has to figure out what's great for the individual. Um, Years ago, women going into court and even in some law firms, you had to wear a skirt.
Hmm.
It's not like that anymore today. So the fashion options are very different. And fashion is fun. Fashion is a lot of fun. And accessorizing is a lot of fun. And it's interesting for me now. I have four grandchildren, three girls and one young man. And it's interesting when they come into my closet, what attracts them. And
Hmm.
I say, what do you like here? What would what's fun for you? And that's great because everybody is different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you're right. It expresses your individuality. That is really nice to see. Creativity. And I remember you mentioning antiquing as another interest of yours.
Well, a long time ago, my husband and I, on our honeymoon, actually, sent home a chest from Hawaii, an oriental chest. And that started our antiquing together. But later in life, I had a client who convinced me to go into the costume jewelry business with her. And the fun for that is when we traveled, we would buy things and obviously sell them. But you learn so much when you are antiquing, in the sense that when I would see different periods of jewelry, and this was costume. So, they were all so very different and yet also wonderful.
Mm.
So, collected Scottish, collected patriotic. Um, so it's always fun to learn. Let's put it that way. Always fun to learn. And by antiquing and reading, because you have to read in order to really understand what you're looking at. Um, it's great. It's fun.
I'm curious, if you are looking at a piece, are you drawn are you drawn to something because of do you seek something specific, or are you drawn to something because of its story? Is it the look? Um, do you have is there a pattern in what you're interested in?
Well, everything that you just said, yes. So that if I see a great piece of Scottish jewelry from 1880, it might make my heart go thump, thump, thump. But then I might see something that was done in the 40s, or even something that's done today, that attracts me to that particular piece of jewelry. So I'm an equal opportunity buyer when I am at an antique show. And when people say, well, what are you interested in? I try to be very polite and say, oh, so many different things. And now let me look at what you have. But you have to study, you have to learn, you have to understand what you're looking at, what the right price point should be, etc.
Hmm. It's like every piece has a story.
Yes,
That's
it does.
yeah, it's really interesting. When you throughout your life and career, is there who would you say is would be your inspiration?
I think um, my parents were a great inspiration to me, um, in the sense that they were folks of the Depression,
Mm.
and they worked very, very hard. Um, Over the years, I mentioned her already, Judge Ellerin, who was the first presiding justice of the Appellate Division, First Department in New York, which was quite a coup. Um, I do have to say, um, I really also learned a lot from my in laws in Colorado. They were also very, very fine people, very well educated. Um, but along the road, there are so many people that I've been lucky to interact with. My dean, John Feerick at Fordham Law School, um, terrific man. Um, so I wish I could go on and on about that, but those folks really made a difference in my life. Yeah.
Speaking about people, what would you say is actually two questions? And one is, what would you say is your pet peeve about people? And then at the same time, what type of a human trait, characteristic do you find yourself drawn to?
There's a wonderful quote by James Baldwin, and it goes something like that. Those who say it can't be done are interrupted by those who are already doing it. So I'm never too happy when people immediately go into the mode of can't be done, no, etc., because there are so many times that something can be done if somebody will just take a moment to think about it and also to think outside the box.
Hmm.
That's what's also really fun, thinking outside the box. How can I get this done? Maybe not the usual way, but maybe in a different way. So, in terms of the second part of your question, I like people who think like that, who will say, of course we can do it, and then figure out a way to do it.
Hmm. We share that. I am a lifetime grower. I challenge myself, not for the sake of challenging myself, but I always look at how things are done in whatever I'm partaking in, what can be done differently, um, how to stretch it, do it better, more efficiently. And there is something, and maybe it's my mother and having grown up in a different country, during the socialism where things were sort of gray, you didn't ask questions, and there was sort of the one way of doing everything. So it's I could, this resonates with me, what you're saying, is just don't automatically dismiss it. It's really more your unwillingness or lack of confidence to try. Yeah, and I think same with kids. It's just try it, right? Don't give up.
And that has to start early when they say, I don't
Yeah.
like peas. Just try one.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just try it.
and
Yeah.
then and then usually they say, I don't like peas after they've tried one. But that's
Well,
okay.
that's
That's
okay.
okay.
At least you
They
tried.
tried.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. As you reflect back on your career also, what advice would you give to incoming law students? And maybe it's advice that you wish someone gave you, something you had to learn on your own.
Well, I think the advice that I always give students is never, ever, ever cross that ethical line,
Hmm.
even if it means having to leave a job, because it's very, very difficult once you have crossed that line to get back on the other side. And, over the years, I've had students come to me and say, this is going on. Judge, what do you think?
Hmm.
And I usually pick it right back and say, you're here talking to me today. Why? And without answering, they come to the conclusion that they need to come to. In terms of what I have learned about myself, I guess that I like to keep learning. And for me, that's very fascinating. And I try, when you're a judge, you have a lot of reading to do. So I
Mm.
try to get up early and try to read two papers in the morning and then get to work. And every once in a while, it happened today, I came across an article and I said to my husband, "You have to read this. You have to read this." And he did. And then we had a good discussion about it. So I have learned that about myself. And I'm competitive, but I've known that for a long time.
Yeah. That's honest. Yeah, obviously, yes, and obvious. You
But
love
in a
to
good
learn, you're
way,
competitive
in a
in a
good
good way.
way. If I
Yes, yeah.
can compete, I would only do it. And running for judge, I only did it when let me put it this way, in a good way, never spoke in any way, in a derogative way about my
Mm.
opponents. Never. I spoke about myself and never said anything negative.
That's not easy because it's easy
No,
to
but
go down that.
it's the right way. It's the right way.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's the right
To do
way.
it the right way, that's not easy, but it must be very rewarding. Having learned this about you, so what's next?
You tell me. What do you suggest?
Okay. Sky's the
Well,
limit.
I guess always what's next is to do a better and better job at the job I'm in now. I very much enjoy getting all different types of cases, and I've had quite a few different types of cases. I'm proud to say I've had repeat lawyers come back, which is very gratifying. Um, Maybe I'll think of something else to do while I'm also here at Jams. I like to be very busy, and
Mm.
we always have a lot of company in our home, and like to be with our family. And but if you can think of anything very exciting, I'm always open to new ideas.
You know, I could talk to you for a very long time. You really truly are a trailblazer and an inspiration. So I have no doubt that I'll have you back on the show and find another a theme. But there's just so much. There's so much you have to share, and I think that's invaluable. And it really truly is inspiring. You know, your energy, your drive, your thirst for learning, because there's a lot of there are many people out there that lack confidence. Sometimes they don't know what is possible. So we need to hear more of more of you, your energy, your story, and so I have no doubt that you will be back.
Maybe it would be my pleasure. My
And
pleasure.
Judge Heidler, thank you. Your journey is a testament, to the impact one can make through perseverance and passion, zest for life, for sure. So again, thank you so much for sharing your incredible story and insights with us today.
Thank you as well.
And to our listeners, to learn more about Judge Heitler and also how to get a hold of her for her mediation services, you can see her information posted below. And do not forget to subscribe to Beyond the Bar podcast on our YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media platforms by clicking on the links below. And until next time, stay curious and stay inspired.